A new Dark Souls board game core set, and according to a poll we did last week before the video, the one people are less interested in buying if compared to the Tomb of Giants core set. But I have to say that after the review you might change your mind. Hi, my name is Nick and we are Tabletop Duo. So grab your favorite drink and let's start with the overview. Then talk about the game components, review the gameplay, talk about what makes this core set special, and end with the 3 things we liked and the 3 things we didn't like about the core set. So let's start with the overview. One of the most important elements of the game is going to be the campaign dashboard, which is this board here split into 3 sections. On the left you will have all the encounter cards split by level. You have level 1, 2 and 3 and they're placed from right to left, so starting with 1 and then 2 and 3. Here, as you advance, you will be doing the encounter, so they're listed here, and below them you have a symbol which indicates what type of encounter it will be, if it's going to be a level 1, a 2 or a 3 encounter. Every 4 encounters you have a boss fight, so in this case you're going to fight the mini boss, then you will play 4 more encounters and you will fight the main boss. You have the Sparks dial over here, and it works as kind of like the number of lives your party has before you get defeated. You have the souls pool here, so whenever you gain XP, which are the souls in the game, you add them here. And in this section, you have the equipment you get by looting is going to be added here. Here you have the treasure deck. Here you have also 4 slots, which I will explain after what they do. And here you have the events deck. And in this section, you have a marker, a time marker, for you to mark number of turns, because some of the encounters you do will actually be played in a certain number of turns, which could be like a mission where you have to survive for X turns and so on. And here you have the character boards. So the equipment is added to the sides. The backup, you can keep essentially 2 treasures here to swap between your hands if you want to. That's a change from the base game. And then you have the miniatures. We're going to be doing some painting guides for the miniatures later on. Here is where you're going to be adding your stamina and your wound tokens, and here you have your stats. And then once the setup is done, you're going to start the campaign. So you move the party token here, and we're going to start the first encounter, which is a level 1 encounter. So you pick 2 cards and you choose between 2 encounters. In this case, I'm going to select this one, and the other one you put it back. Then you pick up the card and you place it just under the section here, and you do the setup listed on the card. For the setup, so each encounter has an objective. It has a specific setup and the number of tiles used. In this case, it uses 1 tile, and these are the tiles for the game. They're double-sided, so you can use any side you want, with the exception that for normal encounters, you don't use the ones with the skull. So now I will rearrange my things here and we're going to start the setup. Now that we have done the setup, we also have 2 special rules. The first one is Snowstorm, which means at the beginning of a character's turn, that character will gain the Frostbite token, unless you are on the node with the torch. So if you're on that node or you're carrying the torch, you don't get the Frostbite token. And then all the enemy attacks gain push. If we compare with the old Dark Souls set, you will see that now encounters have more things you have to care about, you have to do, you have different objectives. This one is to kill the enemies, which is a fairly straightforward objective, but you might have other objectives like survive for 3 turns or pull a lever 3 times, and then you keep having enemies spawning and so on. So that's super cool. Now in Dark Souls, enemies always attack first, then it's going to be 1 player that will perform their turn, then all the enemies attack again, then it's the other character. So because we have the aggro token on the mercenary, so the mercenary will be the first player to play, but in this case the enemies will attack first. So here I got the Phalanx Hollow card. This is the data card that contains all the information of how the attack behaves. So this enemy starts by attacking a nearby character with 1 of range, dealing 4 physical damage. So we're going to start with this one first. So there is a character within 1 range, which is the mercenary. Now the characters have a chance of dodging the attack, and if they fail the dodge, they block. So now we're going to be looking at the character's gear and getting the dice. So I have 1 dodge die, and for physical resistance I have 1 black die. If you're able to dodge the attack, then you dodge it. If you're not able to dodge, then you can absorb part of or resist part of the damage given by the enemy. This is one of the changes also from the base game. So I'm gonna roll the dice. Okay, this attack from the hollow phalanx has 1 dodge difficulty. So because I got that dodge value here, I'm able to dodge the attack. My character, because I have done a successful dodge, I can also move to nearby nodes by spending 1 stamina. So we're gonna do that, and I will show how the stamina works. So in this case, I'm gonna spend 1 stamina. So I add from left to right the stamina icon here. So now my bar has only 9 spaces left. So I will move my character this way. And now the enemy continues its behavior. So now it will stay where it is because it has enough range to attack the character. Now it's the time for the second enemy to attack. So this enemy again will hit with 4 physical damage the nearest character within 1 of range. There's no character, so no damage done. Then it will move 1 node towards the character with the aggro token. So it's gonna move here since this is the character with the aggro token. Now it's the player's turn, and the player can do 2 things. Either you move and you make an action, or you make an action and you move. An action could be attacking or interacting with the terrain nodes that you have here. I'm 1 node away from the tombstone, so I can interact with it. So to interact, I flip it this way. And what the tombstone do, for example, is that I can look into the encounters deck, the treasure deck, and the events deck, look at the top card, and decide if I want to keep it at the top of the deck or move it all the way to the bottom of the deck. So what I will do is I'm going to look at the treasure. So I see I have a pike. So let's imagine this was not a good item for me. So I will just decide to put it at the bottom of the deck. And that's it. Now I can also move. So I will move onto the node with the torch. My character has the frostbite token because at the start of my turn I was not on the node of torch. Then it's going to be the enemies attacking again. So this enemy will do an attack at the nearest target. So we're going to throw the 2 dice again. And oops, in this case we were not able to dodge, so we're going to block some damage. I was supposed to receive 4 damage, so I will just receive 2 wounds, right? So you take the wound tokens and you add them from right to left, like this. Now the enemy is already in range, so it's not gonna move. The other will do the same thing. I'm gonna roll the dice, and you guys get the gist of it. So now, again, I dodged, so it's fine. Now it's the second character's turn, so the second character will do the same thing. The sorcerer can actually do magical damage and can hit targets from far away, so I will just show an attack, an example of an attack. So with the sorcerer, I will hit this enemy, and I have 2 choices of attack here on my card. One that I spend 1 stamina and I roll 1 blue dice and I do magical damage, or I spend 3 stamina and I roll 2 black dice. In this particular case, I think it's better that I just roll 1 blue die. So I will spend 1 stamina and I will start by attacking. I'm within 3 nodes of range. So I roll the die, I do 2 damage. All the enemies, they usually have physical and magical resistance. So you just subtract the total for the resistance. So it has 1 magical resistance. So I still do 1 damage. Therefore, this enemy has 1 health. So this enemy will die. I can also move if I want to. So I will move 1 node here. And again, I forgot about it, but we have the frostbite token. Now it's going to be the enemy's turn. And then it will be back to my turn. So let's imagine this phalanx finished its attack and we're back to the mercenary. So the mercenary, at the beginning of your turn, you remove up to 3 stamina tokens that you have on your character. That's also a change from the base game, because originally in the base game you would remove only 2. So I remove it from here. So you continue playing until you kill all the enemies, because that's the objective for this particular card. Once you have done it, Then you get the rewards listed on the card. So for example, for this one, I would get a soul per character. So I have 2 characters, I would get 2 souls, which are the XP in this game, and then I would just place them here. Now I get to draw 1 event card and refresh an Estus Flask. We didn't use the Estus Flask, but if I had taken a lot of damage or stamina, I could remove any tokens from my bar by drinking the Estus Flask. And the only way to replenish any of these tokens is by going to the bonfire. So this one you get a free refresh without having to go to the bonfire. And I also get to draw an event. So we increase the starting health of all enemies in the next encounter by 1. And if the party completes this encounter, they receive a number of extra souls equal to 2 souls per player. Discard the card at the end of the next encounter. So here we would be adding, I'm just going to remove this card. So you would be adding this to the next encounter. And besides the fact that I am getting an event card from this encounter, every time you finish an encounter, you're supposed to also draw an event card. So I will draw another one. And this one is the Firekeeper's Boom. So choose a character. That character can upgrade a stat without spending souls. Wow, that's really, really good. Let's imagine it's a good segue to how you upgrade your character. So with the souls that you have, once you finish an encounter, you have the option to actually go to the bonfire. And when you're in the bonfire, you can spend your souls to increase your stats and also to buy treasures from Blacksmith Andre, and also to get any treasures you had as you were playing, and then equip between your backup slots and the extra equipment you have that goes beyond what you have with you at the moment. You also replenish your heroic action, your Estus Flask, and your coin tokens. They get replenished. But here we have a free stats upgrade. So the way you upgrade the stats is that you punch out, let's say for the sorcerer, I'm gonna increase the intelligence. So you punch out the intelligence and then you flip the token and you put it back. So you will see now it's like orange, the text. So this means I have a tier 1 for intelligence, which is 23. So if I find a gear that requires me to have 23 intelligence to use, I can now equip that item. So we got a free one, so this card goes here to the discard. And now again, we're gonna draw from 2 encounter cards, choose one, and then place it here for the second encounter. And we also use as well the event card we got, and the other one goes to the bottom of the deck. My characters were not on the bonfire because that event was just an event, so my characters did not go to the bonfire. So I'm gonna bring it back to 4 sparks. And then now the group, if they don't decide to go to the bonfire, we go to the second encounter, and then you do the setup for the second encounter and you continue. Another thing I would like to mention is whenever you visit the bonfire for the treasures, if you decide that you want to see the treasures that are available, you pick up the first 4 and you add them to these slots, and you can choose which one of these treasures you want to have. You have to pay 1 soul per treasure. So let's imagine I wanted those 2, okay? So I spend my 2 souls. If we decide we don't have enough the stats higher enough to equip them, you just leave them here on the equipment, and you can pick them up later on when you visit the bonfire again, and those cards, they go to the bottom of the deck. And that's it for our overview. Nice, so we went through the board game overview, and before we go to the actual review, I have 2 things to say. First, if you want to see all the components, we did an unboxing video, and secondly, we have plans to do painting tutorials for all the miniatures of the 2 core sets. The unboxing video and later on the how to paint video will be in this video's description. There's a lot to talk about it in this review, and I will start with the campaign dashboard. So the dashboard works really well, making it easy to set up the campaign and keeping track of your progress. Although it's quite lengthy, its width is quite small, so it won't take too much space from the character boards and the encounter tiles. You can leave it sideways or have it on top like I showed in the overview. The campaign flow is also really good. You have 3 level 1 encounters followed by a level 2 encounter, and then a mini boss followed by other 2 level 2 encounters, and then 2 level 3 encounters and the main boss, for a total of 10 encounters. Honestly, we don't miss the old system where the encounter levels were dictated by the data cards of the boss you were facing. Also, something that slowed down a lot the pacing of the base game was the fact that you had to fight your way back to the mini or main boss always from the beginning in case you visited the bonfire. Because the new encounters may reward you with shortcuts, you can now decide to start from the shortcut or from the beginning, speeding up the process of farming souls in some cases. Once you defeat the mini-boss, you have a checkpoint and you are going to start the encounters from it, just like in the base game. But they included the main boss treasures in the treasure deck, so you have a chance of finding and using them before the main boss encounter. Although that might sound strange, like being able to get the main boss rewards before killing the main boss, it actually makes more sense considering that the campaign ends once you kill the main boss. For characters, you get the Mercenary, Sorcerer and Deprived, which are from the characters expansion. And that's a little bit of a letdown for me, considering that they could have added other classes not used in the game so far. This is also reflected on the treasures, since they are the same ones found on the characters expansion as well. Although there are new treasures, I was expecting to have many more new treasures as rewards. And talking about them, each encounter gives you many more chances of getting rewards, either by specifically asking you to look for weapons or armor, or by giving a certain number of random treasures, or by opening chests on the encounters. I feel we looted much more if you compare to the base game. Encounters have other rewards, like replenishing an Estus flask, coin or heroic action, which are also great additions to the game, making you use them more often or risk an encounter for a chance of replenishing one of them. And the number of souls you get also varies, so it's important to choose the encounter you want to play, not only based on the challenge but also on the rewards you get, and I like that a lot. The encounter setup is pretty straightforward, and I really like the fact that the encounters have different objective types and that they have special rules as well. For the Painted World, I feel they added, in general, more special rules than the Tomb of Giants, so expect to encounter more variation than the ones you would find in the Tomb of Giants. This makes each encounter exciting to play, as you are always challenged with something new. Encounters can also happen over 1, 2 or 3 tiles, which can make them more challenging and allow for a greater number of enemies to be available in the same encounter. This is another big change that again makes the encounters much more interesting to play. And if you're replaying an encounter because you decided to go to the bonfire, the events add another layer, modifying existing encounters by adding or modifying the existing rules. You draw new events every time an encounter finishes, and sometimes you get extra events as rewards. Besides the events that affect the next encounter, you have some that give you rewards like upgrading your stats for free, and they change a lot the match dynamics. Over the several play sessions we had, the gameplay was always different and exciting, and I love that. Although you have some weird objectives like pull a lever 3 times, the encounter's fun aspect for me changed from water to wine. Before, I couldn't wait to get to the boss fights because the regular encounters were usually dull, and the ones with less enemy variations were very boring to be played again. Now I'm always curious to know what are going to be the next encounters we're going to be facing. In terms of combat, there are 5 fundamental changes in the core set. So this part is aimed at the base game players mostly. The first one is that you recover 3 stamina instead of 2 during the upkeep phase, and it does decrease the overall difficulty of the encounters, but at least for us it unlocked a bunch of weapon abilities that we rarely used. The second one is that you can carry 2 items on the backup slots. This gives more strategical choices for players during combat, and we really liked it. The third one is that now a character dies if the endurance bar is full and you receive another wound or stamina token. The fourth change is that you roll dodge and defense dice together when you're attacked by the enemy. This opens up opportunities for characters that use dodge as their main characteristic. We personally liked it a lot, and I usually play with characters that use dodge, and playing with these characters in early game was always painful. And the fifth change is the one that is the most controversial. During your upkeep, other characters can move up to one node for free. And I understand the reasons behind adding that, but for me, it makes the game absurdly easy, especially when you're gonna be playing with enemies that have melee behaviors. And this is not super problematic for the enemies of this core set in particular, for the reasons I will explain next. But if you want to bring enemies from other expansions or the base game and play with them, they won't be that effective. Talking about enemies, let's do a quick run through the ones that you can find in the painted world. For me, this is one of the highlights of this particular core set, because they are diverse in terms of gameplay and combine really well together. So the rat leaps on the character with the aggro token and do physical damage, inflicting poison condition. The bone wheel skeleton annoys you just like in the game, doing push and physical damage, repeating its behavior twice in a row. The crow demon leaps at the character with the aggro, dealing 6 damage. So this is gonna be the heavy hitter enemy in the match. And the engorged zombie is a physical and magical resistant melee enemy that deals magical damage. The phalanx hollows are the regular rank and file enemy with its beefed up version, the phalanx doing physical damage to all characters in a node. You will see when we do the review of the Tomb of Giants, but there is more variety on this core set. You have enemies that leap, do condition effects, push and attack multiple times, while in the Tomb of Giants, the enemy's overall behavior is to either shoot from afar or attack you from melee range and then push you. That variety can also be seen in the unique terrain modifier for this core set, which is the Poison Cloud, that gives poison if a player character ends its turn on a node containing it. And the fact that all the 4 condition effects in the game, so poison, bleed, frostbite and stagger, can be found either on enemies, mini or main boss, and also on the encounter special rules. The mini boss of this core set is the Heavy Knight, and its special rule is that if a character with a stagger token is hit by an attack that inflicts stagger, you have to place a stamina token on their endurance bar. Most of its attacks do about 5 physical damage. Its heat up behavior have the Estus Flask symbol, which allows it to recover 3 health every time it resolves the behavior. Priscilla is the main boss, of course, and her special ability is that she gains invisibility at the beginning of the encounter and whenever the behavior deck is reset. Invisibility removes the extra black die that you gain attacking her on a weak spot, and the invisibility is removed if she takes at least 1 damage. Her attack ranges between 1 and 2, dealing around 5 damage, and they are split between physical and magical attacks. She can cause bleed and frostbite condition to characters on some of the attacks, and her heat up cards are pretty strong because they do bleed and also they repeat the behavior twice with the possibility of one-shotting a player character. And now let's talk about the 3 things we liked and disliked. So we really liked the new campaign dashboard, the encounter and the event cards, and I think they are a great addition for the reasons that I said before. The second thing that we really liked is the enemies that come with this core set, because they are diverse, fun to fight, and the encounters that combine them together are really fun. And the third thing that we liked is the fact that the core set insert fits all the components in it, even if you use the card sleeves. And that was a big issue for the base game, so it's a great addition. And if you have the base game, for sure you're gonna be like, okay, that's a good one. Now for the first thing that we disliked, that's going to be the fact that the characters we get are from the characters expansion. So if you already have that expansion, it's like you're getting repeated content. I think they should have gone with some characters that have not been used yet in any expansions or content for the board game. The next thing that we didn't like is their choice of having the stats as tokens that you punch out and then punch them back in, and the fact that they are not marked outside of the tokens. So if you lose one of them, you have to find the information elsewhere, and it's the same thing for wound and stamina tokens. I feel the tokens are gonna start to get damaged over time, and honestly, it looks cheap. Like, I think they could have gone with the cubes. And the third thing that we didn't like is the fact that we don't have encounter cards that overlap with the other core set. In previous Dark Souls expansions, you would always get some cards that mix and match enemies of other sets, and I would have loved if I could mix and match skeletons with the enemies of the painted world. So as you can see, I feel the overall use of enemies, conditional tokens and special rules is better applied in this expansion than the Tomb of Giants. If you liked our content, check these other reviews right here, and don't forget to subscribe to receive our latest updates whenever a new video comes out. Thanks for watching and see you next time. Bye!